The Dust Cloud and Her Sons by RDS Team 1.
A long time ago, in a place in space far, far away, there was a big cloud of dust very high up in the sky. This dust cloud was much, much bigger than our Earth, but it was alone and sad. Then one day, a star far away blew up. Kaboom! The big dust cloud was very surprised. So surprised that she fell in on herself. Some parts of the big dust cloud got closer to each other because of a force that pulls things towards each other. This force has a name. It's called gravity, and it explains why things fall to the ground. The cloud started growing smaller, and the dust inside the cloud started pulling each other in. These parts of the dust cloud turned into a big stretched ball of dust and other things that gravity pulled in, like air from other parts of the cloud. The big ball of air formed is a baby star, and the dust becomes tiny worlds like Earth. The baby star is a big dust cloud sun, and we call her sun the Sun.
These baby stars can either be very light or very heavy, and all these kinds of stars have very different lives and weights. You and I are weighed with kilograms, but stars are weighed using numbers of suns. This weight is called 1 solar mass, and solar means sun. So the sun weighs 1 solar mass, and this mass is rather light. So, what was the sun like as a kid? After the big cloud was pulled into a stretched ball because of gravity and become smaller, the center became very, very hot. It starts to give out a red light, but we can't see it because dust blocks the light. After some time, we are able to see the center because the dust around it was blown away by a strong space wind. At this stage, the gravity allows tiny balls of air to start bumping into each other to form slightly bigger balls of air. This is called fusion. As the sun got older, gravity pulled the dust and air closer to each other. This made the stars grow smaller. But before the sun became too small, it started becoming a lot hotter. So the sun stopped growing smaller due to forces pushing the air out. The inside forces became the same as the outside forces, and the sun could stay in the shape of a ball.
The sun as a grown-up is very different from the sun as a kid. When the sun was a kid, it was gravity that made it very hot. But when the sun became a grown-up, tiny balls of air inside the sun knocked into each other. These tiny balls are called atoms, which are the smallest thing possible, and different kinds of tiny balls are known as elements. This knocking of atoms makes lots of heat, and also creates a force that pushes outwards from the middle of the sun. As the sun gets old and very tired of making things knock together, it can't make any more heat. Then, the outside force grows stronger, and the sun is pushed out from the middle to become much larger, and the surface of the sun becomes cooler, changing the color from yellow to red. After more time passes, strong winds blow out the air far away, forming another big dust cloud. The center becomes much smaller, and a small white star remains in the center, known as a white dwarf. One day, the old sun will become so old and so cold that it turns black. But that will be a very, very long time later.
We mentioned the heavy stars earlier, and these heavy stars lead very different lives. These stars are really, really heavy, around 10 to 150 solar masses. They start out as blue or white stars, and not yellow like our sun, because they are so hot. They become red later on as well, but they are much bigger than our sun. However, they stay in this stage for a much shorter time than light stars, as the elements inside these stars are burnt quicker. After some time, the gravity becomes so strong that all the hot air and dust is pulled in together. The star can't take it anymore and blows out with a very strong force and a very bright light. This is known as a supernova. In this time, the tiny balls known as atoms knock into each other and heavier elements are formed, which make up everything on Earth. If the star is heavier than 3 solar masses, it will fall in on itself completely and become a black hole, which has very strong gravity. Nothing can leave this black hole, and it is black because it even pulls light in. A black hole can also be formed if white dwarfs knock into each other. If it is not heavy enough to form a black hole, it will form another type of star, known as a neutron star, where the tiny balls are squeezed very closely to each other.
Even though the stars died this way, the air and dust blown away forms new big clouds, which can then give birth to new stars. These stars managed to live happily ever after. The end.